This is Basketball Infinite. Make sure to like, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. Ziaire Williams is one of the more interesting draft prospects in the 2021 draft. And we made a video about Evan Mobley recently, and there was a thread posted on the NBA Draft Reddit for him that brought up some good points, and it gave me the idea to make a video about it. Alright, best Ziaire Williams fits. I feel like Ziaire has so much potential to become a really fun player in the right situation. Where do you want to see him land? Personally, I think he'd be an interesting fit on the Warriors. I think he'd be able to get open shots and driving lanes playing with Steph and Clay spacing the floor. I think he's more of a project than Golden State wants, but I'd like to see it. So yeah, he could be interesting on there. And in terms of his draft stock, he was a pretty consensus top 5-10 high school player who decided to go to Stanford, and now he's pretty much being mocked anywhere between like 12 and 28. It's a pretty wide range, but as you're going to see from this mock draft from NBADraft.net back in November, he was once a consensus top 10 pick. And this comparison from NBA Draft Room once compared him to Paul George Light, and then now they changed it up to Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Now, his freshman season at Stanford, his first game, as you see, he was the highest rated recruit in Stanford history, ranked number 8 on the ESPN Top 100, won a gold medal in Greece in 2019, McDonald's All-American, played with Bronny James, and I've been around a lot of great ones at KU and UNC, but he's as talented as anyone I've ever seen. So his first game against Alabama, who was a ranked team at the time, at least in one of the polls, but his freshman season couldn't have started off any better. What I notice about him is this jump shot is one of the more fun jump shots to watch that I've seen from a recent prospect. You see how high arcing that jump shot is? And look at this three. That's just a thing of beauty right there. That's a beautiful, beautiful three-pointer. And you see him with his dribbling ability. Look at that move. That's a beautiful move. That's a really, really beautiful move. He's making some beautiful plays here on the offensive end. He finishes this game against Alabama with 19 points, and Stanford started off the season with a big non-conference win. You see him driving here, goes up for the layup, that's money. And we're also going to look at another game that he had in January where he recorded the second triple-double in Stanford history with 12, 12, and 10. You see his athleticism there with the one-handed tip-in. You see his driving ability, his rebounding ability right here, where he goes up, gives it to his teammate De Silva, and he puts it in. And you see that high arcing jump shot that I have said is a thing of beauty, as well as this two-handed windmill dunk. Look at this athleticism, guys. In terms of his Stanford season, those were pretty much the two highlights of it, though. He averaged over 11 points a game, but he also shot just over 37% from the field. He shot 29% from 3, and he had an 11.1 per at the college level. Even more alarming to me is his last 4 games of the season, he shot under 25% from the field. Under 25%. Now, if you're shooting in the 30s on the season like he did, if you're shooting in the 30s, then that's maybe something that can be improved with the right mechanics, but he's a first-round prospect who shot less than 25% his last 4 games, including 1 of 8 in 2 games, including his last game against USC in a conference tournament game that was crucial. Now you see that bucket there, but we're looking at this game against Oregon when Stanford was 5-2 at the time. They were playing the number 21 ranked Ducks. And that's a beautiful shot from the corner, but as you can see in the rest of these highlights, he's missing open shots. He missed a few layups. So, yeah, that's an open floater that didn't even hit the rim. A guy I thought about when watching his highlights was Hamidou Diallo. I probably mispronounced that first name. But Diallo was a guy in 2018 that I was certain wouldn't do well in the league, and he's done well in the league. And Diallo is 3 inches shorter, weighs the same as Williams, and Williams was a plus defender. That's something to keep in mind. He had a 1.5 DBPM, although compared to Diallo's defensive advanced stats were actually higher, and I probably missed that at the time. So yeah, this all concludes to Williams being a very interesting prospect. And he did declare for the 2021 NBA draft on March 31st. I wanted to point this out first. He chose Stanford over Arizona, North Carolina, and USC. Now Williams paired with Mobley on USC. On the basketball court, I don't see any scenario where that wouldn't have ended up better for his draft stock. I'm going to be frank. I think his draft stock would probably be a lot higher right now had he went to USC. Like, point blank. Now, with academics and personal reasons of wanting to go to Stanford, I'm not going to speak against that. I'm sure Williams ended up happy in those regards. But just in terms of basketball stock, I think him and Evan Mobley could have done some serious work at USC, and I think his draft stock probably would have been higher had he gone there. And the thing is, he's a prospect that doesn't really have a lot of info in the mainstream. There's no mainstream articles on him, so we kind of had to dive deep. I mean, it's interesting too because he played with Bronny James, but as you see here, both of his parents served in the Marine Corps and the Army respectively, so he could be coming from a good valued family with high morals. And pretty much all of the mainstream scouting reports on him haven't been updated in months. So we're pretty much going to go to Twitter and Reddit for the scouting reports on him. So Keys Hoop Scouting says, when a young player's go-to move is the mid-range dribble pull-up, that's an excellent sign. The mid-range pull-up is one of the hardest things to do in basketball, and Williams prefers it and does it with relative ease. All NBA upside. From what we saw, he could do that at times for sure. As Lonely Boy said, Ziaire Williams will be special. He does have special abilities, and when you're drafting him, you could be drafting him off of potential. Ethan Fuller is buying Ziaire Williams 100%, and it's his biggest early take. And we've got a couple more takes here where one guy is saying that they want Memphis to draft Williams, and then another who put Williams in his top 10. So let's go back to this thread on Reddit asking about the best Ziaire Williams fits. We'll go over some of the answers. Probably OKC with the Heat pick they have. I think Ziaire would be best in a situation that doesn't ask a lot of him right away and lets him play through his mistakes. I'd love to see him used like they used Poku this year. Okay, here's the thing about that. I made a video on Poku, and that's an interesting comparison because Poku didn't have the greatest shooting percentages starting, but Poku's also 7'1" with abilities that maybe less than 10 players in the NBA have. So I really don't think that's a fair comparison. Tom GNYC says, kid is so raw that there is no fit for him. It's going to be 3 years before he's a net positive rotation player. Toronto is great at developing athletes into positive players, so maybe them. Moving forward, Tiny Maintenance says, franchise that's best at developing players because as of right now, he isn't an NBA player, and therefore fit is irrelevant. And then another one, this is a guy who screams bust. You watch his highlight reel and think he's the next Paul George, but he takes bad shots and doesn't shoot well from the field. But Cole Anthony went through the same thing and he has turned out fine. Certainly a risky pick, but could definitely be a boom prospect as well. And we're going to read this final comment and then we'll get into my opinion on what's going on with Williams and how I think he'll do. With that said, I think he'd be a good pick for a bad team who needs a shot creator. I'm going hard disagree here. I think that would be terrible. I think that would be the worst case scenario. From the highlights we saw, I just don't think he's ready to be a shot creator in the NBA at day one. But I do think that Williams, first of all, made the right decision entering the draft. Because I would say based on everything the evidence shows, there's about a 90% chance he's going in the first round. And if there's a 90% chance you're going in the first round, you take that first round money and you go in the draft. So I do think that was a good decision for Williams, because if he came back for his sophomore year and he struggled more, he probably would fall out of the first round. So, although I'm not sure he would struggle or he would do well if he returned to Stanford, I think he made the right decision. Second, I don't think he should go in the lottery. I just don't. I think it would be a mistake. I agree with the statements that some made that he needs to go to a team that has good development, that has maybe made the playoffs a few years, and where the pressure isn't going to be on him from day one. Because I just don't see a positive end from putting a guy who shot 37% from the field as a primary shot creator for a lottery team day one. I just don't see any scenario where that doesn't end in a disaster. I don't. But he does have potential. He's a plus defender. He was a top 5 210 prospect coming out of high school. He was the highest ranked Stanford recruiting prospect ever. You saw flashes of his ability from his first game, and I believe we showed this on the screen, but we kind of glossed over it until now. But he did have a couple of deaths in the family during the season, so he had some things going on off the court, and I don't think it's fair to mention his struggles without mentioning that. So, in terms of where he's at right now, I think that with this draft, anywhere between 15 and 30 could be good. Because at that point in the draft, you can take a player based on potential. That's just why I'm saying I don't think he should be a lottery pick, because I think it would put too much pressure on him from day one, and the evidence shows that he's not ready for that. Maybe he is. I'm just saying the evidence shows that he isn't. Now, as a Memphis Grizzlies fan, as we showed earlier, I saw him mentioned as a potential option for us. I'm going to be honest, my first thought as a Grizzlies fan was no. That being said, I then took a look at the players who are available outside of the lottery, and honestly, I then changed my answer to, you know what, I wouldn't mind it depending on who's available, because I do think he has potential. He is a plus defender. He seems to be a good guy. He's 6'8". He has tools. And I do think that Memphis could potentially develop him. So here's my final verdict. Can Williams develop into a solid NBA player? I think the tools are there, and that is a possibility. But is he going to contribute from day one? I just have a hard time saying anything other than no there. Because, again, he shot 37% from the field, and it's just not there right now. But I also think that this is a 2021 draft that isn't crazy deep after the top 5 to 6 prospects. So in that 15 to 30 range, I think that there are a lot of teams that could potentially take a chance on him there. Thank you for watching. This is Basketball Infinite. Make sure to like and subscribe for more videos, and you all have a good day.